Let's be honest, your life is cluttered with things that simply don't serve you, things that hold you back and drain your energy. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you keep carrying these burdens? Sometimes the greatest act of rebellion isn't making noise, but quietly eliminating everything that doesn't add value to your life. Toxic relationships? Gone. Self-destructive habits? Also gone. And no, you don't need to make a spectacle of it or wait for anyone's approval. In today's video, I'm going to teach you to follow the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Let go of what you cannot control and set yourself free. Because, my friend, life is far too short to remain trapped by other people's expectations. I'll show you step by step how to eliminate 10 things that are undoubtedly turning your life into chaos. Not just physically, but mentally as well. These things are destroying you before you even realize it. And if you don't take action, you risk losing something far more important: your peace of mind. That's why you need to start today, quietly and without excuses. In the end, what you leave behind says more about you than what you try to hold on to. Are you ready to truly start living? But before we begin, pay attention to this story that will help you better understand the wisdom contained in this material. In a small coastal village, there lived a young fisherwoman named Helena. She was known for her skill in navigating the roughest waters and her incredible ability to fish on the most difficult days. However, over the years, Helena had accumulated a great quantity of broken nets and tools she no longer used, but out of pure habit, she kept them. Every time she set out to sea, the space in her small boat was filled with things that hindered her work. One day, as she was preparing for a long journey on the ocean, a powerful storm formed. The waves battered her boat, and she realized that the excess baggage she was carrying greatly hindered her ability to maneuver. For hours, she fought against the storm. But she felt that it wasn't just the waves that were her enemy, it was the unnecessary load she was carrying. On the brink of despair, Helena made a difficult but necessary decision. She began to get rid of what didn't serve her. First, she threw the broken nets overboard, then the old worn ropes, and finally even some objects she had kept out of attachment, but which weren't useful. With each thing she released, her boat became lighter, and she could maneuver better. The waves remained strong, but Helena no longer felt trapped by the weight of the past. Thanks to this decision, she managed to stay afloat, and finally, when the storm passed, she returned to port. She was exhausted, but safe. When her fellow fishermen saw her return, they asked how she had survived the storm. Helena, with a calm smile, replied, "There are moments in life when we cling to things we don't need, objects, memories, or people that only add weight to our journey. Only when we decide to let go of the unnecessary, quietly and without drama, do we find the freedom to move forward with greater ease." The moral of this story is that in life there are many things we need to quietly eliminate in order to move forward. Sometimes the load we carry prevents us from navigating with lightness, and only by releasing that weight do we discover our true path. 1. The fear of other people's opinions. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself how many decisions in your life have been made out of fear of what others might think? That fear that creeps under your skin, preventing you from being yourself. It's like living on a continuous stage under the critical gaze of an audience that, in reality, isn't even paying attention to you. You know why? Most of the time, people are too busy dealing with their own insecurities to judge you. Yet still, you freeze. The fear of others' judgment is like a silent parasite that feeds on your dreams. It clings to your back and whispers in your ear every time you think about doing something different or daring. What will others think? And suddenly, you change direction, adapting your life to what you believe others expect from you. What irony. We spend so much time worried about others' opinions that, without realizing it, we stop living the life we truly want. This fear pushes us to please people who often aren't even truly part of our lives. It's as if our compass is misaligned. Instead of following the north of our intuition, we follow the south dictated by society. You wear the mask that best fits the expectations of the moment, at work, with friends, even on social media. But what about the real you? The one hidden beneath layers of false smiles and borrowed opinions. Sometimes the fear of what others will say is even more subtle. It disguises itself as prudence. Now isn't the right time. Or maybe I'm not good enough. Excuses masked as wisdom that deep down hide the same monster, the fear of others' judgment. And meanwhile, your dreams remain filed away, waiting for a better moment that never comes. To eliminate this fear once and for all, we need to practice Stoic philosophy. The Stoics teach that we cannot control what others think of us, but we can control how we respond to it. It sounds simple, but it's not. It requires constant exercise in introspection and courage. It's about learning to live for yourself, to make decisions that make you happy, not just to please others. Life is too short to be lived under the shadow of others' opinions. A good exercise is to start quietly eliminating things from your life that bring no value, things that are only there to please others. Do you feel obligated to maintain a certain image? Did you choose a career that doesn't satisfy you because it seemed like the right choice? Free yourself from these chains. Start with small decisions. Say no to commitments you don't want to take on. Do something you've always wanted to do, but were afraid to because of what others might think. Each small action will be a step toward freedom. I won't lie, it's not easy. There will be days when the weight of others' judgment feels crushing. But in those moments, remember, every time you choose to live according to what others think, you lose a piece of who you truly are. It's a kind of slow, silent death that you can avoid if you have the courage to be true to yourself. So start eliminating these things quietly. You don't need to announce it to the world. Just let go of what isn't yours, what doesn't belong to your essence. Learn to trust your own judgment and to value what you think of yourself more than what others might think. Because at the end of the day, the only person you owe explanations to is yourself. As Carl Jung said, freedom begins the moment you stop worrying about what others think of you. 2. Toxic relationships. There's a phrase I love. There is no one more blind than those who refuse to see. I'm sure you've heard it, right? Curiously, we often apply this selective blindness to our own relationships. We get used to dealing with people who, in some way, take more from us than they give. Yes, I'm talking about those toxic relationships that, without you realizing it, drain your energy little by little. And what's most curious? You often cling to them as if they were indispensable. I'm not just referring to romantic relationships. Toxic relationships can be anywhere, in the family, in your friend group, at work. And what's most interesting is that no one forces you to maintain them. But there you are, tolerating them in silence, as if letting go were an affront to the world. Why do we do this? Perhaps because we were taught that breaking ties is a sign of weakness or insensitivity, as if eliminating someone from your life were an act of cruelty, when in reality, it can be the greatest gesture of self-love you can perform. Let's bring some philosophy into this conversation. The Stoics teach us that we shouldn't worry about what we cannot control. This also applies to the people around us. You cannot control how others act, but you can control whether or not you want to keep them in your life. It sounds simple, but here's the difficult part: doing it quietly. And don't misunderstand me. It's not about silent revenge or feeling superior. It's simply a conscious decision not to feed a relationship that wears you down anymore. Think about it. You don't need drama to eliminate what doesn't serve you. You don't need to announce to the world that you're detoxifying from people. Just let go. It's like stopping watering a plant that no longer blooms. You do it calmly, knowing it's no longer part of your garden. That's okay. The plant goes its way, you go yours, and life continues. Has it ever happened that you spend time with someone, even someone close, and come away from that interaction completely exhausted? It's not that the person is bad, but their energy doesn't align with yours. That's where the key comes in, detecting these relationships. Listen to your body, your mind. If you feel that every interaction with a certain person is a true emotional marathon, you might be in a toxic relationship. It can be painful to admit, but it's necessary. Here's where the strategy of silence comes in. Gradually reduce interactions. Stop seeking contact. Distance yourself. No grand gestures or fights are necessary. Just stop being available. It's liberating, believe me. Not because you're turning your back on the world, but because you're prioritizing your well-being. Sometimes self-love isn't saying no out loud, but saying enough in silence. So how do you identify these relationships? It's simple. If every time you see a message from this person, you feel a knot in your stomach, if going out with them leaves you more exhausted than a full week of work, if you notice it's always you who gives and never receives, you already have your answer. When that becomes clear, begin the elimination process. No drama, no unnecessary explanations, just move forward. In conclusion, it's not about being cruel or holding grudges. It's about respecting yourself enough not to allow them to continue draining the energy you could be using with people and activities that truly nourish you. In the end, the key is being honest with yourself and placing your well-being above guilt or the fear of hurting others. Keep this clear, my friend. Some people are like the wind. You feel them, but you cannot hold on to them. You just need to let them pass. 3. Self-destructive habits. Sometimes you catch yourself doing small things that, if you look closely, you know aren't taking you anywhere. These are actions that seem harmless at first, but without realizing it, they gradually wear away at your mental or physical peace. I've fallen into this trap more times than I'd like to admit. Small, self-destructive habits that go unnoticed, like a constant drip that over time wears down even rock. But what happens if those habits are the rocks of our daily life? How do we eliminate them without making a scene? First, we need to recognize them, and that's the trick. It's not easy. Pointing out what bothers us about others is one thing, but identifying it in ourselves is different. You wake up in the morning and without thinking, grab your phone. Not for anything important, of course, but out of pure habit, as if your finger were programmed to swipe the screen before your brain has even woken up. Seems harmless, right? Until you realize you've lost 20 minutes of your morning immersed in nothing, with your mind already saturated before you've even left bed. This is just one example. We do this with so many other things. That extra coffee that wasn't necessary, that conversation you knew you shouldn't have had, that series that adds nothing to you, but you keep watching out of inertia. These are the small things that over time can create a big hole in your well-being. Now, eliminating these habits is another story. Let's be honest. How many times have you promised to leave something behind and ended up doing it even more? Like when you say, starting tomorrow, I'll really begin. And then tomorrow comes, and it's just another day of excuses. This is where a lesson from the Stoics comes in. These ancient Roman philosophers believed that great transformations don't happen all at once, but in small, silent, almost imperceptible steps. You don't need to shout to the world that you're going to change or make a grand gesture. You just need to start observing. The key is awareness. When you notice your hand reaching for your phone for no reason, stop. You don't need to throw your phone out the window, though that might be cathartic. Just set it aside and do something else. Something as simple as taking a deep breath and stretching. When you feel like having that third cup of coffee, ask yourself, do I really need this, or is it just habit? If it's just inertia, put the cup down. Sometimes it's as simple as that. stopping at the right moment, without drama, without needing monumental changes. Eliminating self-destructive habits doesn't mean you'll become a perfect person overnight. We all have our small internal battles, and that's okay. The point is to approach them with a simple strategy: silence and consistency. Like a drop that, instead of wearing away, gradually polishes. And if someday you feel like you're not making progress, remember this: what today seems like a small effort, over time transforms into a great victory. You may not see the results immediately, but it's like planting a seed. One day, without much fanfare, it grows and becomes a tree. The same happens with these small adjustments. So the next time you identify a habit that harms you more than it helps, eliminate it quietly. You don't need to announce it or make a big show. Just let it go, step by step, drop by drop. As Epictetus said, true change doesn't make noise, it simply happens. The 4. The desire to control everything. Have you ever felt that if you don't have absolute control over everything around you, the world will fall apart? Don't worry, I understand. We like to believe that if we organize every detail to the millimeter and prevent all unforeseen events, life will be like a perfectly adjusted machine where nothing can go wrong. What an absurd idea, right? Yet still, we find ourselves trapped in this mental game, convinced we can dominate everything that happens to us. It's a trap, a mirage. And the worst part, the more we try to cling to control, the more we feel we're losing balance. So I ask you, what if you let go of this obsessive need for control? You know, this habit of wanting everything to be exactly as we imagined. The desire to control everything is nothing more than a mental prison, one we build brick by brick. Each time we believe that with enough effort, things will turn out exactly as planned. But you know what? The universe doesn't work that way. Stoic philosophy, with its timeless wisdom that remains so relevant, teaches us that the key isn't in controlling what we cannot, but in releasing the unnecessary and focusing on what truly depends on us. Think about it. We try to control the weather, others' opinions, people's reactions, the results of our efforts, everything that in reality isn't in our hands. It's like trying to hold back the tide with your hands, a complete waste of energy. Yet still, we do it constantly. And worse, every time something doesn't turn out as we expected, we get frustrated, we get irritated, as if it were a cosmic injustice. What irony, right? Imagine you're carrying a backpack. Each time you try to control something beyond your reach, you put a rock inside it. At first, you might not even feel the weight, but over time, the backpack becomes unbearably heavy. In the end, that load crushes you. Wouldn't it be better to get rid of those rocks, to make space for what really matters, for what you can actually control, your emotions, your actions, your choices? Let go of the rest. For a long time, I myself worried obsessively about predicting everything that could go wrong in my life. If I had a meeting, I'd plan every possible uncomfortable question. If I scheduled an outing with friends, I'd worry about the place, the weather, anything that could deviate from the plan. It was exhausting. And you know what happened? Most of the things I worried about never happened. In the end, I realized that this attempt to predict everything didn't give me more control. It only gave me more anxiety. So I started to let go. Little by little, I learned to trust the process more. And what happened? Things continued to happen. Some good, others not so much. But I felt lighter because I had stopped carrying what wasn't my responsibility. Trusting life doesn't mean being passive or irresponsible. It's about accepting with maturity that there are things outside our hands, and that's okay. Quietly eliminate this need to control everything. Make space for the unexpected, for surprises, for what's beyond your reach. This doesn't mean you should simply settle and watch life pass by. It's about releasing the weight and accepting that there's a part of the path that doesn't depend on you. And you know what else? It's liberating. Remember, sometimes letting go is the most powerful way to take control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, true control lies in the ability to release the uncontrollable. 5. Unrealistic expectations. I don't know about you, but I spent a good part of my life believing I needed to be perfect. No one told me that directly, but it was in the air, hovering between well-intentioned comments, approving looks, and that constant silent comparison with others. I grew up with the firm conviction that meeting others' expectations, and worse still, my own, was synonymous with success. What a great lie. If you stop to think about it, trying to fulfill unrealistic expectations is like trying to fill a bottomless well with a leaky bucket. You never finish, you're always exhausted, and in the end, all that's left is a sad puddle of frustration at your feet. What's most curious? Many of these expectations aren't even ours. They were built by others, family, friends, society, and we accepted them because, in the pursuit of being better, we decided we needed to fulfill them. Do a quick exercise. How many times have you felt disappointed for not achieving something you didn't even really want? Exactly. We impose goals on ourselves so high that if we fail, we feel worthless. If I'm not the best at my job, the perfect partner, the ideal friend, the exemplary child, what's left of me? In the end, these expectations end up weighing more than our own actions. It's like running a marathon with a backpack full of rocks. You advance more slowly, tire sooner, and even if you reach the end, you feel like you did it dragging your feet. What's the point? This is where Stoic philosophy comes in with a brilliant insight. According to the Stoics, you cannot control what others think of you, nor guarantee that the universe will act in your favor. What you can control is how you respond to it. The key, then, is to reduce the load. Lower those expectations that suffocate you. If you expect less from yourself and others, it doesn't mean you're settling. It means you're freeing yourself. You're no longer trapped by the constant pressure to meet the impossible. You're simply existing and moving forward. Of course, this magic doesn't happen overnight. I'm not saying to throw all your expectations out the window at once. Think of it like cleaning out a closet full of old clothes. First, look at what no longer fits, what you never really liked, and start getting rid of it one piece at a time. Sometimes you hesitate to let go of a shirt because you think you'll use it someday, but deep down you know you won't. It's the same with expectations. Start eliminating those that don't belong to you. Then review your own and ask yourself, are they realistic? You don't need to keep them all. Something that can help reduce expectations without creating drama is changing how you talk to yourself. For example, instead of saying, I need to do everything perfectly, try, I'll do the best I can with what I have right now. It seems simple, but it's liberating. You make space for error, which is human, and for the possibility of improving without constant pressure. Another foolproof trick: avoid telling everyone your plans. The less noise you make, the fewer expectations others create about what you should achieve. After all, external expectations are just that: noise. Quietly eliminate what doesn't add value. You'll notice things start to flow much more naturally. Releasing expectations isn't giving up. It's an act of wisdom. Instead of focusing on what you should do or be, concentrate on what you really want and what's under your control. Fewer expectations, more freedom. Engrave this in your mind, my friend. The less you expect, the lighter you become. 6. The need to always be right. Have you noticed you have a habit, almost an obsessive need, to always be right? To be the person who knows everything. It's as if every conversation were a battlefield, and victory meant proving you're right. A silent but relentless fight. The worst part? This war isn't with others, but with yourself. Every time you insist on having the last word, it's as if you need to convince yourself that your worth depends on it. Doesn't it get tiring? Because honestly, I'm already exhausted from this endless race. We were taught to believe we always need to have the right answer, as if being wrong was synonymous with weakness. Society, social media, even family gatherings reinforce the idea that failing is failure. But I'll tell you a secret. Sometimes being right is the least important thing in life. Stoic philosophy teaches us to accept what we cannot control. And you know what? You cannot control others' perception of you. This endless race to prove you know everything leads nowhere. It only makes you more anxious, more frustrated, and at the end of the day, lonelier. Ask yourself, what do I gain by always being right? An invisible medal. It doesn't seem worth the effort, does it? It's like carrying a suitcase full of unnecessary rocks. With each argument or imposed opinion, you put another rock in there, until the weight becomes unbearable and you wonder why you're so exhausted. The answer is simple. You're wearing yourself down over something that has no real value. Next time you feel that urgency to prove you're right, try staying silent, not out of resignation, but out of liberation. It's like letting go of a pen you've been holding for hours without realizing it. When you let go, you feel a relief you didn't even know you needed. The same happens with the need to always be right. When you release that load, you realize you were trapped in a cage you didn't even want to be in. So how do you release this need? Accept that you don't need to know everything. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay not to have a formed opinion about everything. You're not competing in a wisdom contest. Learn to truly listen. Not to refute, but to understand. There's a huge difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a biological function. Listening is an art. When you listen attentively, the anxiety to go or impose your point of view disappears. Appreciate silence. Sometimes the best argument is simply allowing others to have the last word. Not every conversation needs a winner. Because in the end, winning an argument isn't the same as having peace. Is it worth always being right at the expense of your tranquility? Not at all. Next time you're in a conversation and feel that urge to correct or impose your opinion, take a deep breath. Let go of the pen. Let it go. The peace you'll feel will be infinitely more valuable than any momentary victory. If it's any consolation, remember the Stoics. They knew that true wisdom isn't in being right, but in knowing when to let go. As Seneca said, true knowledge isn't in winning all battles, but in knowing when not to fight. None of the key. 7. Digital noise. Have you noticed how you're surrounded by digital noise? I'm not just talking about the cars in the street or the neighbor drilling through the wall, but that other noise, the one in your pocket, in your hands, in your eyes. Social media, endless notifications, messages that won't stop arriving. It seems like everything is designed to distract you, to keep you in a constant state of alert. And there you are, thinking you're in control, when in reality it's digital chaos that controls you. The reality is that we live in an era where silence is a luxury, but that luxury isn't as unattainable as it seems. The first step is understanding what's really stealing your attention, because in truth there are things you should quietly eliminate from your life. And yes, it's possible. It's just not as obvious as it seems. I'll be honest, digital chaos doesn't disappear just because you close an app. That would be like trying to put out a fire with a glass of water. What you need is to be radical, like the Stoics, who knew that inner peace was what truly mattered, and they didn't achieve it by letting themselves be carried away by external distractions. So, what should you quietly eliminate from your life? Let's go. First, social media. Yes, I know it seems cliché, but believe me, the more accounts you follow, the more noise you create. I'm not saying to disconnect completely, but think, do you really need to know what your friend's sister's cousin is doing? Eliminate without mercy everything that doesn't add value to you. And if you can, do a digital cleanup from time to time, like organizing a closet. Take out what no longer fits, what should never have been there in the first place. Second, notifications. Here's where it gets interesting. Why do you allow your phone to interrupt you every 2 minutes? Every time it vibrates or makes a sound, your brain jumps. This doesn't just steal your time, but also your mental energy. Disable all non-essential notifications. At first, you might feel some anxiety, as if you're missing something, but later, when you realize how good it is to have control over when and how you check your phone, you'll thank me. Third, the fear of missing out. Najin are the great modern villain. We live with the feeling that if we're not connected, we'll miss something important. But here's an uncomfortable truth. What really matters isn't on the screen. It's around you. In the people, in the moments that go unnoticed while you're stuck on the latest viral meme. Eliminate that fear. Release the need to be in everything. Because the more you try to embrace the digital world, the more you lose what's truly worthwhile. Once you get rid of this unnecessary noise, something magical happens. You start to hear what really matters. Digital silence is the first step to reconnecting with yourself, with your ideas, with your true priorities. This is where Stoic philosophy comes into play. You can't control what happens outside of you, but you can decide how you respond to it. When you eliminate digital noise, everything else becomes clearer. My advice is this: choose silence, not as an absence of noise, but as a conscious presence of what you really want in your life. Because in the end, that's the true luxury of our era. As Gandhi said, peace doesn't come when the noise stops, but when you decide to listen to yourself. 8. Negative thoughts. Have you stopped to notice how negative thoughts enter your mind almost without making a sound? Like someone who doesn't want anything, they appear and suddenly they're in command of everything. They're like those neighbors who arrive without warning and worse, don't leave. What's most frustrating? You often hand them the key, not because you want to, but because they've convinced you their presence is inevitable, a part of your daily routine. But what if I told you that you can change the locks? Let's speak clearly. These thoughts are nothing more than destructive patterns that end up shaping your actions, and not in the best way. You've surely caught yourself thinking things like, "Why does everything go wrong for me?" Or "I'll never make it." And of course, when these thoughts repeat again and again, you end up believing them. And what you believe, you end up acting on. It's like planting a poisoned tree and then wondering why the fruits aren't edible. What's curious is that these negative thoughts don't necessarily reflect reality, but they feel as real as the ground you walk on. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in, with its brutal simplicity. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. It seems so simple, but in practice, it's something we frequently miss. We allow these mental patterns to dictate our emotions and actions, when true freedom lies in taking the reins of our responses. And where do you start? The first key is silence. Yes, you read that right. Quietly eliminate these negative thoughts. You don't need to make a spectacle trying to push them away. Just start recognizing when they appear, identify them, and don't feed them. The more attention you give them, the more power they have. Think of it like a fly in the room. If you obsess over catching it, you'll only agitate it more. What if you ignore it until it gets tired of flying? Second, question your thoughts. Nail. When a destructive thought arises, ask yourself, is this true? Is everything really going wrong, or is it just an exaggerated perception? Often you'll realize they're inflated ideas with no real basis. And if there's some truth, you can start thinking about solutions instead of staying stuck in the problem. Third, detachment. I'm not saying you should become a monk on a mountaintop, but start taking emotional distance from your thoughts. They aren't you. Just because something passes through your head doesn't mean it needs to stay there. This requires practice, but little by little, you'll learn to see them for what they really are, clouds in a sky that remains steady. Negative thoughts are one of those little things you should quietly eliminate from your life. They don't need fanfare, just careful focus, patience, and internal questioning. Because at the end of the day, what you think shapes what you do, and what you do defines who you are. As Brian Tracy said, thoughts are not facts, but if you believe them, they become your reality. That's it. 9. Physical and mental clutter. Sometimes it happens that we wake up and feel the world is a bit heavier than normal. You look around and realize it's not just a feeling. Your space is loaded with things, objects, piles of papers, clothes thrown on the chair, and somehow your head also feels like a disorganized drawer. I don't know if this happens to you, but when my surroundings are messy, I feel like my mind follows the same path. Physical and mental clutter, though it may not seem so, are more connected than we'd like to admit. There's something deeply exhausting about the disorder around us. Our disorganized space directly affects our mental clarity. The Stoics, for example, spoke about the importance of focusing on the essential, of eliminating the superfluous. And if you think about it, clutter is exactly the opposite. It's everything unnecessary that distracts us and throws us off. The accumulation of things doesn't just occupy physical space, it also consumes energy. Each object out of place, each paper that should have been thrown away months ago, each thing blocking your path. All of this isn't just accumulated material, it's noise. A noise that fills the mind with small pending tasks and worries you didn't even know you had. You know that feeling of wanting to organize something, but not even knowing where to start? That's the secret. It's not about organizing everything at once, but quietly eliminating what no longer serves. The first step is simple. Observe. Look around and ask yourself, do I really need all this? If you haven't used something in a long time, you probably don't need it anymore. But it's not just about material things. Mental clutter works the same way. Sometimes we accumulate thoughts, worries, and feelings, like someone keeping broken objects, thinking they'll be useful someday. The truth is that keeping all this only weighs us down. So what do? Quietly eliminate, little by little. You don't need to make a big spectacle of it or announce it to the world. Just let go of what no longer serves, both physically and mentally. Sometimes silence is an act of rebellion in a world full of noise. If there are people in your life causing you discomfort, projects that no longer motivate you, thoughts that only drain you, get rid of them. Without drama, without unnecessary explanations, without going around in circles. Just let them go. The exterior reflects the interior. Remember that often, external order reflects internal order. If you start bringing a bit of clarity to your surroundings, you'll see that little by little, that clarity will also reach your mind. It's not magic, it's a process. It's like when you decide to clean out a drawer and suddenly feel lighter, because in the end, everything in its place is one less worry. Each object you release is a step toward a lighter, clearer life. The Stoics didn't complicate their lives with the unnecessary. They knew the key was to focus on what truly mattered and let the rest pass. As simple as that. Living in a world full of physical and mental clutter is like walking in a maze with no exit. But when you start getting rid of what you don't need, you discover that the exit was always there. You just couldn't see it because of the excess. If you want mental peace, start organizing what's around you. Do it without rush, without noise, but consistently. Your mind will thank you. As Nelson Mandela said, when the noise quiets, the essential becomes clearer. D10, unnecessary comparisons. Sometimes I wonder, why do you have this habit of comparing yourself to others? Come on, don't make excuses, we all do it. But tell me, do you really think it serves any purpose? It's like running in a race where the others don't even know they're participating. And the worst part, they probably don't even care. Meanwhile, there you are, in your head, measuring every step, every stumble, every small advance. But not yours. Others. Comparing yourself is like trying to win a singing contest using someone else's voice. It makes no sense. You have your own melody, your own rhythm, but you insist on following someone else's sheet music. The problem is that this seemingly harmless habit gradually undermines your self-esteem. You wake up one day feeling like you're not good enough, not fast enough, not enough at something, all because you're too busy looking sideways instead of focusing on what's in front of you. The truth is, life isn't a sprint, it's more like a boat crossing. You choose the course, the stops, and the pace. But if you're too focused on the boats passing you, all you accomplish is steering your own boat off course. What's most curious? While you're watching someone else's boat, they're probably doing the same with you. That's how this absurd comparison works. Everyone looks at others, but no one enjoys their own journey. Stop comparing yourself and do it quietly. Eliminate this practice as one of the things you remove from life without making a fuss. It's like getting rid of an old shirt you don't wear anymore. No one needs to know, but you'll feel the difference. Comparing yourself to others isn't just useless, it's a betrayal of yourself. It's like telling your inner self that it's not enough, that you need to be someone else to be worth something. But think about it. This philosophy doesn't make sense. The Stoics already said it. The only valid comparison is with who you were yesterday. So what do you do when comparison begins? Don't try to silence the voice. Question it. When you notice that internal voice starting to compare, listen to what it says, but question its logic. Why are you comparing yourself to this person? What exactly makes you feel inferior? Remember what you've already accomplished. Take a pause and reflect on your own progress and achievements. We often forget how far we've already walked when we're constantly looking at others. Another strategy that works is practicing gratitude. Yes, I know it seems like worn-out advice, but I guarantee it's powerful. Be grateful for what you have, for what you've achieved, for what you are. When you focus on what you have instead of what's lacking or what others possess, something shifts. Suddenly, the weight of comparison begins to disappear, and you realize the only path that matters is yours. Life is too short to waste time competing in an imaginary race with others. Comparing yourself only distracts you from what really matters, living your life at your own pace, with your own rules. And when you start doing this, you realize how liberating it is. My friend, I'll leave you with a reflection that helped me a lot in the most difficult moments. When you stop seeing yourself through others' eyes, you discover who you truly are. I sincerely hope this message has been useful to you. I want to genuinely congratulate you for making it this far and completing the video. That means you want to improve as a person. If you enjoyed the video, leave your comment. If you don't know what to comment, write gratitude. That way, I'll know you watched until the end. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and join us. Stoicism is full of teachings like these that are applicable. Therefore, I encourage you to continue learning about this philosophy. I'm leaving 2 videos packed with Stoic wisdom here so you can keep learning. Until next time.